declarations of absence. I'm not sure we didn't have anything tonight, so, and as far as I'm aware, we don't have any requests for dispensation. Agenda item 3, can we sign the minutes for last month's meeting? 130, continued. Sorry, I'm on the back page. 113 to 117. Yeah. 118, 119. 119 continued, 120. 120, 121.
Yep.
121 continued. 122, 124. 124 continued, 125. 125 continued, 127. 128, 130. 130 continued. Yes. Okay, so agenda item 4, public participation. It's time for any members of the public to speak on any agenda items. Would any members of the public wish to stand and speak this evening? Okay, when you do so, if you could stand and give your name and what agenda item you'd like to speak about, please. And I'll start with this gentleman first, and I'll come over to, and then we'll work our way back. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks very much. So hello again, my name's Paul Littlewood. I'm chair of the Heatherside Residents Association. A number of us weren't able to make it today, hence the camera. But there are a number of us here that really are here to show interest, I guess, in 2 items in particular, although I note there are at least 4 or 5 items of interest here. So I particularly wanted to look at the local plan sites consultation, which I think is item 5I, and then the DWH planning application for Whitby Road 5I2A. So just a few words, hopefully, in respect to the local plan consultation. We will be challenging the District Council's proposal to reclassify Site 347 as suitable for development. The reasons are many and varied. Some of them we've gone over with you over the last few months already, so I'm not going to dwell on those. We are aware that this is a district matter, but really as a matter of courtesy, we'll be copying the Town Council in with any representations that we do make. That nailed off. In respect of the David Wilson Homes planning application 17, the Whitby Road one, I guess just a few words in respect to the summaries and guidance in Appendix 4, if you'll allow me. Section 5(2)(a)(1) relates to the primacy of the local plan sites document and the consultation thereof. This planning application, we believe, should be judged against the adopted local plan, not against the proposed amendments which are under consultation, which are being challenged. We also note that whilst the District Council might be, quite rightly, mindful to not recklessly invite legal challenge from the developer, we should also be aware that public confidence in the process and the local plan itself is in fact being undermined. And that legal challenge to the application process may also be invited. On point 4, which relates to density and housing yields, DWH have over time suggested various potential housing yields for this site. Initially they pegged the site for about 180, 190. That got written into the local plan. More recently they've upped the ante to 250. Now that seems to have found its way into the proposed changes in the new sites document, which in a spectacular turn of circular logic, they're then using to justify their application and the numbers that they put therein. It kind of boggles the mind, but it's clearly something that was foreseen, because if you go back to the forerunner to the local plan, the Rydale Rural Residential Design Guide, section 3.17 warned that specifying minimum design densities provides easy targets for land values and can too easily become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I guess they saw this one coming. On point 5, and I guess 8 and 9, I'd just like to reiterate that our concerns are based on real and tangible issues. Concerns that even in these late stages don't seem to have been adequately addressed. Now it might be easy for some to use NIMBYism as an easy to dismiss straw man argument that fails to properly address these concerns. We do appreciate the difficulty of balancing property need, land availability, public opinion, but development of this scale, when fully populated, will grow the town's population by something in the order of 10%, maybe a little bit more. So the gravity of decisions made in the coming days and coming weeks, coming months, will have a profound effect on the town. I'm nearly done. We want to see Pickering thrive, grow and develop, as I'm sure all of you do. We're also mindful as to why people choose to come here, whether that's to live, as a destination for recreation or for vacation. Whether it's the old world character, the independent high street retailers, the heritage railway, the closeness to the moors, the charm of a rural town, steeped in history and character.
Sorry, can we just make sure that all focus with
Yes,
obviously...
I'm sorry about that. My apologies.
Okay, thank you. We are just trying to listen carefully, and it is important that we're here. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that was my floor. But that said, this is a town that continues to exude that days gone charm, and offers an open-armed welcome and a friendliness of which we can all be rightly proud. We should strive to protect and develop that character, not just to become another ambiguous town to pass through on your way to somewhere else. We contend that this development bears no resemblance to the existing local housing stock and is unlikely to be what people who are looking to move into this area will really be looking for. Perhaps something more in keeping with the local character might be more attractive, and in fact might even add to, rather than detract from, the charm and open edge of town feel that is currently enjoyed in that area. Hiding such a development from visitors is one thing, but we can't hide something of this scale from the existing residents. So in formulating your response to the consultation or to the application, I'd ask you to also be mindful of the loss of amenity for existing residents. And let's just recognise that people who will end up living in this relatively cramped development with what appears to be insufficient parking, limited if any access to local dental and GP services, forced to travel on overcrowded roads, I'll not go on, but they're unlikely to be living the rural dream that they perhaps thought that they were buying into. So I'd urge you once again just to recognise this for what it is. It's an unsustainable development, lacking any local character and charm. Thank you.
Okay, if I move over to the figure on the left-hand side here, if you'd like to stand and give your name.
Hello, I'm Sally Tozer, this is my husband Brian Tozer, and we are responding, objecting to the proposed development, not the actual proposed development, but the choice of site for that development for the railway carriage of phase 1 and further development of stage 2. We live at Rock Cottage, which lies on the west side of the railway line, and we have one track access over the bridge, the one that is mentioned in the planning application. We don't drive, we travel everywhere on foot or get a taxi or a lift with somebody. Right, we've had a couple of meetings since we heard about this planning with the NYMR, and this is part of what the MIR, North Yorkshire Moors Railways easier, have said is their collaboration with the people of Pickering. We went to 2 meetings, one very brief, introductory, and the second one, which was supposed to be a liaison and consultation and collaboration. Again, we were the only citizens from Pickering, the only inhabitants who were invited to these meetings. And we didn't really collaborate. We were told what would happen, and it will happen when the funding comes through and the plans are passed. I asked what papers had been told and how many other people in Pickering knew about it, because nobody we met knew anything about it. And we meet people frequently, strangers, because we have a public footpath, a heritage walk that runs through our property and alongside the proposed development site from north to south. We told the local papers because they hadn't been told. As a consequence of all of this trying to get the public awareness, we became aware of a letter that Mr. Andrew Scott had sent out to all the members of the NYMR for support. It's a very misleading and underhand way of touting for custom. I don't know of a politer way of putting it. They say that the only site is our site, the field adjacent to our house, alongside the footpath. footpaths. Lots of public footpaths in that area, very well used all year round. Not just by dog walkers and people from Pickering, but walking groups, people doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award. They all come through us and they come back that way at the end of the 3-day stint. We get literally hundreds of walkers coming past through our garden and along that footpath per year. So the quarry says it's the only suitable site. Sorry, the NYMR say it is the only suitable site. We asked them, what about the quarry, the disused quarry? It's a lot more suitable for that kind of development, particularly since the people who own the field do not want the public visiting it when it's developed. We were told it's over a year since the quarry was approached about this project, not as implied by a lot of the publicity statements that went out to the papers. We object to the underhand manner that the support is being drummed up. The photocopies that you've got, 2 pages, are the copy of the letter I'm talking about. So I've dealt with point 1, that is a little mark on it. Point 2 is the underhand manner, where Mr. Andrew Scott implores the members, bearing in mind in their website is thousands of members it's gone out to, for them, their neighbours, their friends and their relatives to put a letter of some kind of support to Rydale District Council. And then there's an idiot's guide on how to do it online. And then the next line is, well, if you can't do it online, send them a letter. Since when did people from outside of Yorkshire, let alone North Yorkshire, people in London, Bradford, Birmingham, why should they have a say on how the land is developed here? The next stage is on the next page of that letter, and the quote is, "The trout farm is already derelict and an eyesore." Yes. A new use for this site will be an improvement. But the development isn't on the old derelict farm. It's going to be in the field that is still owned by the trout farm people. And it has always been a field with cattle on originally before they bought it, and after that horses, apart from the odd camper van at war weekend. That is a very, very misleading statement to all the people outside of Yorkshire who may not know the area well, and they will assume that the trout farm is being developed for this. It isn't. The trout farm is on the east of the line, the field is on the west of the line. And it is part of an allocated area of outstanding, can't find it, the exact quote. It's an area of it's designated, as an area of high landscape value, hence the heritage walk and everything else, because it was the old road into Pickering pre-motorisation. All of that will be lost. We feel that the field is proving an easy option because already we are the only people in Pickering that were invited to collaborate, and nobody else was informed about it. We informed the people at Newbridge and everybody that we could. We feel it's an easy option because we're the only ones that literally in the application to RDC are involved in it, and it's on the back page of their application that we are the only listed residents. There are well-used footpaths in the area. The Pickering Woods overlook the area. It is a place of high landscape value. But if the NYMR develop this field, it's 5 acres of an industrial site that will replace a lovely green valley. Stage 1 will see the carriage stable housing up to 40 carriages. This will be 9 metres high, 27 metres long, and the length is 166 metres, which is almost 2 football pitches long. And there will be 10 rail tracks for access to all of this, plus parking for 12 cars and an access road through the field, and there will be another repair shed. I think this will be the 5th repair shed, although the Railway only does manage at the moment 1.5 carriages per year renovation. The existing agricultural store spans the valley. The proposed repair shed that is going to be, quote, tucked away in the corner of the field will be 4 times the big of that agricultural store, but it will be 13 metres high. That's the equivalent of a 4-storey house. How the do you tuck one of those away in the corner of a field? It will incorporate accommodation and amenities as well as being a workshop. There will be, because of all of this, floodlights, security lights, amenity lights. At the moment we have starlight. There is no street lights at all in that area, apart from when you get right past it to Newbridge itself, and there's some more agricultural land past before that, before the dwellings. So we are the only house there, and we've never had lights all the time we've been there and prior to that. There will be noise pollution, not just the noise of the engines moving the carriages or moving or going into the engine shed, or the cars coming daily to get to work and park there, but sometimes the engines, especially the diesel and the one that shifts things from A to B, is left ticking over, idling. And if you've ever heard a diesel idling in an open space, in a valley, it echoes, it bounces. And we've timed it a minimum of 2 hours on some occasions. But on top of that, every time it moves, whether it be a steam engine or a diesel engine, it has to sound a warning signal, a hoot, every single time, no matter how far they move or how little they move. So there will be noise pollution, floodlights. Oh, and talking of flooding, how do you get permission to build such enormous things, these buildings, on a floodplain? Because it is a floodplain. We have a photograph of the floodplain. This is one of the last times it flooded. There. That's 5 acres of flooding in one field. It's been assessed as 1 in 100. I don't know who assesses them, but they should come and live where we live. Our house has never been flooded. We're raised up. But if this plan goes ahead in this field, the railway will have to raise all the land on the northern side, all the land on the eastern side. The southern side is already raised up, taken up by the agricultural store that spans it, and the western side is where we live and where the heritage footpath is. If that is raised, the minimum of 2 metres, which is needed, we've been told, by the railway, to bring it in line to the level of the existing tracks, where's all that surface water going to go? The bund hasn't been fully tested yet, not by consistent rain over a long period of time, which does happen in England. There's a natural spring into that field, at least one I know of, and I've been told there are more by people who have lived there longer than me. That's more surface water coming in. All this surface water, when these boundaries are raised, will push towards us, Rock Cottage. We will be threatened. Our septic tank and soakaway is in that eastern corner of our land, slap bang next to where they're doing all of this. Our septic tank and soakaway won't. End of story. In conclusion, we moved here 33 years ago. We've invested a lot in that property. We're both working artists, so our surroundings are very, very important to us. We chose to live in the countryside. It'll all come to an abrupt end. It'll be like taking Rock Cottage and dumping it in the single biggest industrial development in Pickering, if it goes ahead in that field, when there are other options that could be explored, in spite of what is said. We've seen how the truth can be misled in the application letter. I don't believe it's the only existing suitable site. and neither do a lot of people. And when the buildings do go up, it does resemble a little bit like living behind the Berlin Wall.
Excuse me, can we, you came to your conclusion
Yeah.
is we do need to move on,
Right.
if that's okay. I don't want to...
One last thing, it's seriously going to devalue our property. Who do we get redress from? And the last thing is, if it goes ahead, this will be a green valley gone forever. There'll be a mile of industry on that railway line coming into the heart of Pickering.
Thanks
Is that
very
why
much.
to take the train?
Thank you. Okay. Gentleman on the second row now. Press your stand and give your name and what you'd like to speak about. Obviously, if it's an item we've already spoke about, if you pick to new points that haven't already been mentioned.
Right, thank you. Mike Potter, speaking on behalf of Pickering Civic Society. I am speaking on items 5A mainly and a little bit on 5B. I'll start on the David Wilson Holmes Whitby development. Most of that's been covered, but can I just say that given the unacceptable delays in fulfilling their responsibilities at Woodlands Park and their appalling record on land drainage, particular note should be made of the land drainage risk to Marshall Drive and the environs, and any planning conditions should be rigorously enforced and with an agreed timescale. I'm sure you'll like to agree with that. Moving on to the application for the carriage sheds, and the Civic Society are opposed to this for a number of planning reasons. You've already heard the more emotive stuff, but these are our reasons for opposing it. The flood risk, this is flood zone 3, which is the highest flood risk, and it is floodplain development. It's the worst place for floodplain development, simply because it is just above a flood-prone town. It might be protected by a 1 in 25 year flood scheme, but not from large flood events. We can find no consultation response from the Environment Agency, nor any sequential test. The sequential test is mandatory for any flood zone 3 development to identify possible alternative sites. Has this sequential test been produced? Only unavoidable development should be permitted in flood zone 3. This is only unavoidable by ignoring Newbridge Quarry. There's questionable suitability of the balancing pond for small to medium intensity flood events, as the proposed design is optimised for a 1 in 100 year event, which will give faster runoff in lower return events. I can explain this if required, but probably not just at the moment. The pumped discharge of surface water runoff means this would be entirely dependent on the pumps working in flood conditions. If there was any failure, it could be quite a serious issue. This represents continued industrialisation of Newtondale in a classified area of high landscape value. There's the precedent for future development, adding to the carriage repair shed adjacent to Undercliff, the recent car park development up the valley, closing the gap to the permanent way yard at Newbridge. Members will be well aware of how tidy these areas have been for decades, which didn't change much when the last shed was built. Lack of security for the open-sided sheds. This was one of the primary reasons given for the development. Noise and light nuisance for existing residents and general light pollution from security lights, particularly as the time of use is stated as 17 to 2300. Lack of suitable facilities for sewage treatment associated with carriage toilets. Proposals only appear to consider the site manpower, not carriage effluent, which could be considerable. This is industrial development contrary to the local plan. Further degradation to the main amenity area of Pickering, which has already been stated is very popular for walking, cycling, horse riding, etc. Now, we recognise that the railway have limited scope for development along the line, but feel there's a far more sensible, sensitive and discreet option at Newbridge Quarry. Consequently, a number of inquiries have been in progress to assess the feasibility of such a scheme. We believe that there have been no discussions with the railway and the quarry since the time of Phil Benham a couple of years ago. Perhaps the railway could be asked what discussions have taken place with the quarry owners and the leaseholders about the feasibility of putting this shed there. With whom and exactly when did those discussions take place? Also, what discussions have taken place about rail access to the quarry with the Duchy of Lancaster or owners currently blocking the course of the line into the quarry that existed up to the closure of the railway in 1966? Our investigations suggest that access would be quite possible with the permission of the Duchy, with an acceptable gradient and curves, both of which would be less than those on the existing current line. A reason given for not using the quarry was that it was a considerable distance from the station. The loco stabling facility is adjacent to the quarry at Newbridge, and presumably that loco would be needed to collect the carriages. Just over a mile is not a considerable distance, and this is not a planning consideration. Just another question. Plans of the area of development include the old trout ponds, and I wonder why, when no part of the development appears to be on there. I think that about covers it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And
Janet Lum, on the same subject of carriage facility. I've made quite a few of the same points, so I'll try and make it brief. Just to clarify a few things, one is that I looked out of my room this morning, as I do, across that site, and it was waterlogged to a lesser extent than it sometimes is, but nevertheless, and that happens, as far as I'm aware, every winter, so that is a big consideration, obviously. And then on the fact that the MYMR have written to volunteers asking them to support the application, I've read some of the support letters on the website, and as has previously been said, they refer to the eyesore of the derelict trout farm, but they don't realise that that's not where the proposed development is. And I think obviously a lot of them are thinking, well, it'll improve things, so it can't be bad. So obviously they're basing it on false information. The fish tanks will remain in place on this plan, which is for, again, as being said, a land of high amenity value. On a green field where currently about 5 horses are running around, and horses have been there as long as I can remember. As far as I know, that field has not been zoned for industrial use. I've asked that question, no, it hasn't. And I find it incredible that suddenly this huge leap could take place where an industrial development could take place on high amenity land. I do not think that people, even those who are supporting it, realise the scale of this development. To say it's over 42 feet high, I've been trying to work it out, I think it's slightly higher than this room, so it's huge in height. The length is at least 4 times, if not more, the length of that big agricultural building that straddles the field at the moment. That is already huge and blocked my view into town, but hey, that was allowable. But this is no, I think it's more than 4 times the length of that. This is absolutely huge, and I think people who party to making the decision need to go and have a look. It needs a site visit, doesn't it, to see how big it actually is. That's just one of the buildings. The other one, the repair facility, again, huge, big enough presumably to lift carriages off with a crane, you know, and so on. That's again, a similar height, a bit less perhaps, but nevertheless very high. And these are called sheds, you know, shed creates the impression of a very small building. These are more like hangars, they're more in the scale of an aircraft hangar. We've said about the land designated high amenity value, and you know, presumably that's a big planning issue to change it into industrial land. And the noise, apparently, they can be working from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. in one or other of these sheds, hangers, respectively. Hammering on metal, using potent metal paint, you know, all the good things that go on to create a level of noise and smell that is unthinkable to us as country dwellers. We would smell it, we would hear it, and that is not acceptable to those of us who chose Newbridge for the peace and quiet. We're aghast that this is even on the table as a proposal. This is not about who is for or against the railway. I am a member, I'm a freely member of the railway, and I support it, but I don't support it in this place. The railway